I think it's interesting how about halfway through the NFL season, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of debate about who was the NFL's most valuable player. And you would have people in the Tom Brady camp, people in the Carson Palmer camp, you had people in the Cam Newton camp. Um, I think it was interesting to kind of see that dichotomy of why people would feel this way about such and such player, that such and such player in terms of the MVP award. But I noticed over recent weeks that MVP discussion has really died down a lot. And I think part of the reason is because, in my opinion, there's not much room for debate anymore. And the simple truth is this, is that Cam Newton is the NFL's most valuable player. Just give the man his damn award and be done with it. I know this aggravates certain segments of the NFL fan base. I know this most certainly seems to aggravate the NFL and sports media for reasons that are still unbeknownst to me. But the discussion about this topic has died down a lot in recent weeks, and I think it is in large part because of the reality that no matter how much the media wants to set their own narrative, no matter how much certain segments of fans buy into some of that bullshit narrative and want to give it to somebody like a Tom Brady or give it as a career achievement award to somebody else who's having a really good season like Carson Palmer on a pretty good Arizona Cardinals team, the simple fact of the matter is that Cam Newton is, unequivocally now, the NFL's most valuable player. Now, some people will sit there and point to the fact that a quarterback with a completion percentage of under 60% shouldn't be able to win the most valuable player award. Well, numbers are one measurement of importance and value to a team. And I'll put it to you this way. Where would the Carolina Panthers be without Cam Newton? I can guarantee you they wouldn't be 13-0. It's that simple. They most certainly wouldn't be in the position they are now. They might not even be a playoff team. I think you could tangibly point to what they have, or in some cases don't have on that Panthers team, in particular on the offensive side of the ball, see the importance of Cam Newton and what he brings to that team and what he means to that team, and understand his value. I mean, let's look at this. A lot of times the MVP award ends up becoming the quarterback award, similar to how a lot of times it can in college football with the Heisman Trophy. It's usually the quarterback on the best team in the country ends up winning the award, the best player on the best team. Or in this case, usually just the quarterback on the best team. Well, if we use that logic like we've used in past years for guys like Peyton Manning to win it umpteen dozen fucking times, Cam Newton most certainly fits that mold. His Carolina Panthers right now, as we sit, are 13-0. 13-0. He's been the starting quarterback for all 13 of those games. They are 13-0. So he's got that in his favor. You could point to the supporting cast and how much of the weight he has to carry and how much of the load he has to shoulder. And you look at it and you say, this is a guy that coming into this season early in training camp lost his number one wide receiver on the outside in Kelvin Benjamin. Doesn't have him for the entire freaking year. Imagine how much different the Arizona Cardinals offense would look if Larry Fitzgerald missed the entire season or Rob Gronkowski missed the entire season. He doesn't have his number one weapon on the outside, his number one wide receiver, for the entire year. He has a wide receiving core consisting of Ted Ginn Jr., a second-round pick, Devin Funchess, who really hasn't done a whole lot until recently, and even then still hasn't been that much, Philly Brown, an undrafted wide receiver from Ohio State, and Jericho freaking Cotchery. Those are his wide receivers. Now, granted, you've got Greg Olsen at tight end, and other than Cam Newton on the offensive side of the ball, he's definitely the closest thing they have to a special player. I mean, Ted Ginn's a guy that's fast and he could run by anybody, but he damn near can't catch a fucking cold. Devin Funchess struggles to get separation. Philly Brown is a slot guy, nothing more. Jericho Cotchery, a slow possession receiver, and really not much more than that. But yet here's Cam Newton, even with that being said, leading his team, even with the good defense, granted, but a defense that at times doesn't play all that well. His team is 13-0. Even with the less than 60% completion percentage, he has 28 touchdowns through the air. He has 7 more touchdowns on the ground. So when you look at his contributions and you look at his impact both as a thrower and as a runner, when you factor all of that in, you can see just how much of the load Cam Newton has to shoulder. You can see how much of the burden falls on him and how he has stepped up to the challenge this year and led the Panthers to a whole different level, brother. And that's the truth of the matter. I mean, imagine if he did have Kelvin Benjamin, what his numbers could be. Imagine if in some of these games where he's come out and thrown 3, 4, 5 touchdown passes early, and they've been blowing through some teams, if he actually played all 4 quarters at a, with an intensity of like it's still a game, how much better his numbers would be. Imagine how much better his numbers would be, in particular his completion percentage, if he didn't have Rock Hands Ginn on the outside dropping multiple deep balls that would have led to touchdowns. I mean, there have been several times this year that somebody like Ted Ginn has dropped a long touchdown pass. So Cam Newton should very easily have 33 to 35 touchdowns this year just throwing. He would have even more yardage through the air if his receivers were better. I mean, when we look at it, team-wise, team has the best record in the league. If Tom Brady's Patriots were 13-0, we'd be talking about him as the unanimous MVP. Well, why can't we do the same with Cam Newton? Yes, he's not quite the same thrower as Tom Brady, not the same type of pocket passing quarterback as Tom Brady, but Cam Newton could do things that Tom Brady cannot. And just focusing on his arm alone doesn't bring everything into account. You're not factoring in the dual threat elements to Cam Newton and what he could do on the ground. Also, I think we do a disservice to Cam by focusing on things like a less than 60% completion percentage, the fact that he probably won't throw for 4,000 yards this year when we're talking about him as an MVP. We're not looking at the entire picture. We're also not looking at a guy that at times when his team has needed him to, see the road game in Seattle, see the game this past week against the New Orleans Saints, at times where his team needed him to step up and make big plays and deliver, this guy has done it time after time after time after time. This man has answered the bell. And it's about time we recognize Cam Newton for the talent that he is, the quarterback that he is, the player that he has become, a borderline elite quarterback in the National Football League, based off of the strength of his individual performance and what he has meant to his team, and where his team is in the standings this year. I think it's beyond question. I think there's no doubt about it that the NFL MVP award goes to Cam Newton this year, and it should. And for the people that sit there and say, well, I don't like him. Oh, but when Aaron Rodgers does the discount double check shit, we like that, right? When Tom Brady sits there and is cussing in somebody's face, or he's pointing first down, or this, we like that shit, right? I bet if Russell Wilson had the exact same numbers with this level of talent in Seattle that Cam does have in Carolina, there would be no question. Everybody would be sucking on Russell Wilson, schlong in the media, and pumping him up as the unanimous MVP award winner. They'd be talking about him, how he has truly ascended into the elite of the NFL quarterbacking stratosphere. But somehow we're hesitant to do that with Cam. He's now led his team to 3 straight playoff appearances. This is their 3rd straight division title. They are 13-0, the last undefeated team in the National Football League. Cam Newton has accounted for 35 touchdowns. It should have several more if his receivers didn't suck so bad. He only has one real quality starter in the passing game, and that's Greg Olsen. His offensive line isn't all that great. His running game with Jonathan Stewart is solid, but Cam Newton's the best runner that they have. So he's the best thrower that they have. He's the best runner that they have. Frankly, he's the best athlete on that team that they fucking have. Cam Newton's the NFL MVP award winner. Period. End of discussion. There is no more discussion. And for those of you that don't like it, eat shit. Because the dude ain't going anywhere. Give him his props. He's worked hard. He's gotten to a point where he deserves to be admired and respected. The man does a lot of good. He's great with kids. Does quite a bit in his local community. So what? He does the dabbing and this and that, and he does the first down point. A lot of white quarterbacks do too. I'm just saying. Cam Newton, the NFL's most valuable player in 2015. You can book it. And at this point, I don't see how there's any argument that anything other than that is the case.